So I'm going to continue the vibe from before because a couple of things clicked and I didn't want to extend the previous video to over 30 minutes. I know I've just like YouTube videos that go beyond that moment, beyond that minute, need to be either a podcast or some like educational video. So I try to keep my videos between like 8 to 12 minutes. But on average, I seem to kind of like connect a whole lot of my thoughts and try to elaborate on them. And I don't know if I try to end on a single point or not, but like I clearly I'm able to do more videos. This in one setting I've done 5 videos so far and I still plan on at least 3 today. But so yeah, like so one thing that the people over there they don't have and they just kind of like don't take pride in local manufacturing. And again, like the hardest things it was for my employer, the the investor slash stakeholder in the actual factory was to convince people that good quality could come out of local production. Most people just would rather buy something from outside. Like as long as it's exported, they're fine with it. So that kind of doesn't bode well. So whatever campaign I have to work on or whatever structure I have to do has to be basically to build that kind of pride, to build that kind of like trust in local manufacturing, to build that kind of like level landscape for other people that are trying to manufacture locally and the issues they might be having with the public. Well, again, our factory sells to an end consumer. It's not a service-like thing. I met people that have factories over there, like cardboard factories and plastic factories. These are not things people like look at. Like these are things companies look at. So a company's assessment is different than the end consumer assessment. So I really think there's a difference in that kind of assessment and our product, given that our product is of a high quality product that's built in country and to be sold to the end consumer directly and utilized over a period of like years. So I really think there has to be some form of value behind our brand that we are basically inspired by the outside world and actually built locally. That alone should build within us a certain kind of like tone of voice of who we are and create the archetype that is us because we're the support, we're the stability in your household, man. Like I'm here washing my clothes at my parents' house because we don't have water at home. I can only imagine people in the desert where they don't run out of water. What are the things they worry about, right? Like, how the fuck would they get how would they shower? How would they cook food? What would they have to go through to actually get decent clean water and all that good stuff? So I really wanted like this kind of like and here I'm writing basically like I'm writing like the certain colors and I discuss the colors with the people because we do industrial tanks and we do just drinking water tanks and we also do tanks for agriculture. So it's basically the 3 colors yellow, green, and blue, right? Funny enough, the actual colors of the flag are red, yellow, and green of the flag of Kurdistan. So maybe something about like maybe I should use the red color. Oops, sorry, I got a phone call. But anyways, so here I think yeah, what I did here was in order to like deal with the emotions that they were having. Remember, this is still on day 2. To deal with the emotions that they were having towards like certain people that kind of were buying from them and eventually went and opened their own factory. I started kind of like separating the positives and negatives of having competitors or other people in the market. And the bad things was basically business production, copying our basically product, lying to customers because apparently that's something people easily do over there to sell. They don't care. And the thing that basically hits us hard is the fact that this guy was like a big player in the market when it comes to buying and selling this stuff. Now he has his factory, so for them it was horrible. But then on the positive side, like if we compare products, we win. And when it comes to issues with people, how does he fix them? Because if he gives them a product that kind of like spoils, he doesn't offer guarantees the way we do. So when it comes to customer service, he's not the best. He's just a good salesman. And again, remember, there's the wholesalesman, and there's the agent, and the salesman, and then there's the wholesaler, and then there's the retailer. So the people we're talking about right now are either agents or wholesalers. What we're doing is we're targeting the retail directly. Instead of we either work with the retailers directly and we give them for a set price and we stabilize the market so the agents don't screw us over, and the wholesalers basically a better get a better understanding to these things. And to do that, we have to level the price with the actual like consumer. The minute we reach the consumer, we level the prices, we layer them properly. Then the retailer is gets protected. He doesn't have to deal with like agents that just want to sell, and we don't have to deal with the backlash because when people want to call customer service, they don't call the agent, they call us. So I started basically like pointing all these things and kind of like enhancing the whole support. Like we need more people in the market in order for us to be able to level up. Because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be thinking this way. We wouldn't be wanting to approach the market differently. We wouldn't be considering other alternatives and options and all that stuff. It was fun. It was really fun because I could like you see their eyes and how they're kind of like shifting and how they're relaxing because like it's things that they were feeling tense about, but instead of focusing on others, just focus on yourself and that kind of stuff. So it was beautiful. Also, I I talked. I think the first day they were explaining to me that like all of them they wanted like they all of them were a unit, but they are three separate parts of the factory of the actual company. There's the actual like product line, which are there are two brands, but and each brand has two product lines, three product lines because like one method of production they only do it on demand. But there's also the factory, and the factory makes these two brands. And for me, man, I stressed and I started discussing with them how important the factory is and how we need to promote it as well and strengthen its existence among the brands, at the very least from a support perspective. Because if we were going to channel ourselves towards something different in the future, the factory itself could actually be a strong base for other methods of business that are not necessarily related to our brand. Other people might come to us and be like, we trust your work. We want you to do this for us. Just take the money, right? So yeah, and then basically we talked about like 6 months down the line and how we would look versus our competition if we actually only focus on what we're talking about right now and what we're wanting to do. And they basically started, that's when their emotions kind of like let loose because the tension that they had piled up, and then each of them would be looking at me, go like, so if we only do this instead of focusing on him, on our competition, or on the agent that basically left us, on the other factories that are there, we could level up our production, we could increase our customer reach, we could convert a lot more customers from steel to plastic. And the more customers buy plastic that's cheap, the more they would start understanding the value. So our branding would support people transferring to plastic, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they will convert to us, but that guarantees them, if we have a high level product, that they will come to us at some point over the next couple of years when they start having issues with low quality products. So I started explaining that every step we're doing right now is guaranteeing sales, just not necessarily direct sales over the next month, 2 months, 3 years, or something like this. And that's something they started kind of like talking about and be like, oh, if we keep doing this, then we would have bettered our customer service. We would have actually had a sales team. And they started coming up with these ideas and I started writing them down. And with that, the vibe kind of changed. And that something interesting happened that day while we were talking. And I go like, no, if you look at your product as a value, I think I should end at this. Uh, Instead of thinking of our job as selling tanks, how different would it look like if our job was to use these tanks to buy money? All right, so think of this logically, because technically, whoever's coming to us has money they want to buy, and our product is tanks, so basically the only thing we can sell them is tanks. But if we're going to them, then we're going to buy, and the only thing we have to buy with is tanks, and the only thing they have to sell is money. It's the basic principles of how the barter system used to work, and that's money basically became a medium, an accepted medium. And there's a beautiful story about gold and how gold came to play, and then after gold, like silver, and then they started mixing, like gold came, and then copper, and then silver was in between, because they used the fact that copper is, they started mixing gold with copper, and then the gold would lose its actual color. So people would start valuing the higher quality gold, which has less copper in it, and then basically the copper coins would release in value, and then they would buy gold with copper coins. So copper coins became a valued actual item. And then because of the rarity of silver, it kind of picked up, and the cleanliness and something like this. And then eventually the Chinese, the Chinese, I think in the 400s, 500s, olden times, man. It's like they developed a system where, like, instead of merchants carrying a lot of silver along their way, they would take just government bonds, and then the government would store their actual money. And then when Genghis Khan invaded, he actually basically saw that system and started printing bonds left and right and paying his funding his war that way. And then eventually, basically, in first ever inflation, probably, like, in recorded history. And then when everything kind of like collapsed, everyone asked for their money, and then oops, there's no money. We just printed a whole lot of bonds, and then it's a good story. But if we were to look at this from a barter system, we're no longer connected directly to the opinions of the actual, to the user, to the consumer. Our focus at that point strictly becomes, who are we? And we need to go out there, buy money with what we're producing and what we're representing, in order for us to use that money to pay our workers, buy material, and do this even more. Which is effectively what people do. Like, you go to work to get paid money, and you use that money to survive, and then basically you go to work while you're surviving in order to make more money, and then basically it's the same transaction. But that shift in mindset for me was like crucial, especially for me. And for them, they kind of like started looking at it differently, because they stopped looking at how they can convince the actual customer to buy the tank, but how they could actually like use the tank for the customer to like, because if the tank is of shitty value, then the price would be low, and if the tank is of high value, technically, then you want to buy more money with it. And that train of thought got us into like a beautiful sales pitch back and forth. I'll continue this in the next.